The Louisville Zoo houses so many endangered animals. They also take part in efforts to save these animals. From tigers to ferrets, the Louisville Zoo cares for a majority of the world's endangered species. We spoke with the zoo's curator, Stephen Taylor, about some of its endangered animals.
Certainly we have a lot of animals in the collection that are endangered or in trouble.
Taylor first introduced us to the zoo's polar bear, Kinnick, who is almost 8 years old and came from Alaska.
U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service picked her up, took her to the zoo in Anchorage, Alaska, and then 2 months later she came here.
The zoo also takes part in research involving how we can save the polar bear species.
One of the things that we do here at the zoo is we're actually participating in research to help field researchers better understand what's going on with polar bears up in the Arctic. So one of the things we do is we're looking at, take hair samples, and we're looking at the cortisol in the hair.
Gorillas are one of the biggest faces in the fight to save endangered species. The Louisville Zoo houses several of these primates.
But they estimate maybe 100,000 western lowland gorillas left, but because their populations, within the large population, they're becoming fragmented. And so instead of having the ability for the different groups to kind of cross-pollinate, so to speak, they're being fragmented because of habitat destruction or mining or whatever. And so that, all of those things help lead to our concern.
Black-footed ferrets are one of the zoo's main conservation projects. Keeper Guy Graves explains how these ferrets almost went extinct in the efforts to bring them back.
We're part of a reintroduction effort. We're one of 5 zoos that reintroduces them to the wild. These guys were actually thought to be extinct as recently as 1980, but a rancher's dog out in Meeteetse, Wyoming found a carcass, black-footed ferret carcass. He had no idea what it was, but he had a taxidermist friend that did. Came out and found a colony of about 120 to 130 ferrets, studied them in the wild to about 1985. They noticed the numbers were going down rapidly. They were able to get 18 animals out of the wild. What they believe is that a coyote with distemper got in the area.
Still one of the most endangered animals on the face of the earth.
Exactly. Absolutely. Probably the biggest challenge right now as far as putting them back, though, is plague. You know, the disease that ran rampant through Europe a few hundred years ago is still out there. And it can just decimate prairie dog colonies. And so we have to make sure when we put them out for release, we put them in areas that there's no active plague.
When asked about what these men want the public to know about conservation, this is what they had to say.
No act is too small. You know, anything that you can do, you know, a lot of people think, well, I'm not going to make a difference. But if you try something, you know, whether it's to cut back on use of plastic, increase recycling, you know, it can have a cumulative effect. If everybody takes the philosophy, well, I'm not going to make a difference, then you're never going to get enough people together to make a difference.
The real thing that you have to look at when you're dealing with endangered species are really, you have to factor in the human part of the equation, and how can we find ways for animals like tigers or lions or hippos or rhinos to be able to coexist with the people.
This is the Avengers for the last time, signing off.